Welcome back to the eForge podcast, where overwhelmed operators become empowered leaders and where you forge businesses, influence, and legacies that last. I'm your host, Cory Long. Today's episode is for the high performer who's done a lot of things right, but still feels like something's off. You built success, you've checked the boxes, you've stayed busy, and yet there's this quiet question underneath it all. Is this really it? My guest today helps leaders wrestle with that exact tension. Alan Goff is an author, speaker, an entrepreneur who works with high-achieving individuals who are tired of living on autopilot and ready to build a life rooted in purpose, meaning, and intentionality. His work challenges the idea that more success automatically leads to more fulfillment, and instead asks better questions about identity, alignment, and what it really means to live a life that matters. Today, we're talking about the purpose beyond achievement, breaking out of the default success paths, and what it looks like to intentionally design your life instead of just reacting to it. This conversation is going to be thoughtful and grounded and honest. Guys, welcome Alan Goff to the podcast. Man, thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, you're welcome, but I'd like to just say thank you right back at you because
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
this
You're
is going
taking
to
a
be fun
risk.
today.
You don't know me from a hole in the wall, so you're just taking a risk.
This is great. This is
People say,
great
"Oh, it's
because,
nice to meet you." I'm like, "Is it?"
yeah, this is great because this is going to be not only I'm going to learn a lot about, I've already learned a lot about with you, just what we chatted a little bit before, but tell our audience, like, I know you've spoke around the world. I know you've written books. I know you do all kinds of leadership pieces. I know that you're starting to move towards a very faith forward. You want to work with Christian business owners, Christian leaders, entrepreneurs, people that are in kind of influential places that they're trying to grow. Tell people a little bit about who you are and kind of what you do.
Okay, I don't want to hog all our time in that because I'm a speaker. I'm a professional talker,
I
not a
get it.
professional listener.
I get it.
Yeah. Anyway, you know, I started out, I'll back up a little bit. I started out in business with my dad, going into the family business. I have four sisters. I'm the only boy. So my dad's dream was, all right, father and son, right? And
Yeah.
and 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 one day that he was going to be able to retire, sell the business off to the son. The son would take it over. That's the dad's exit strategy. And there would be this legacy piece, I suppose, and
Yeah.
this was his big dream. And my dad was in the oil field. He had an oil field service company. I could see the writing on the wall as I got older. I got out of high school. I was one of those guys. I say, I was in the part of the class that makes the top half necessary, or relevant, and I said, I'll never set foot inside another classroom as long as I
Yeah.
live. And
Yeah.
my dad said, "Good. That means you're going to work for a living. And if you're going to work for a living, you're coming to work for me." And off I went. And I put a year in after high school working for my dad out in the northern oil fields of
Oh
Alberta,
man.
British Columbia, up here in Canada. And I thought, "Good Lord, if this is my future, just slit my wrist now. I don't want to do this, and I better go get me a fancy education." I went
Yeah.
back to college. I went to university. I got a degree in computer engineering that I've never used a day in my life. Now
Nice.
I got to go talk to an eighth grader to figure out simple tech on my thing, whatever. And anyway, I'll tighten that up a little bit. But I ended up coming back home to go to work with dad in the family business in the oil field. And then I saw that writing on the wall after a number of years. This was the exit strategy dad had. This was the date. And I
Yeah.
just said, I can't do this. I can't do this. This is dad's dream for him and for me. And it's kind of the purpose he's put on but I knew that God had a different purpose for my life. And he had designed me differently than he designed my dad. And so, I walked into the family business one day with my letter of resignation and I set it down and I resigned from the family business. And that was a very memorable day. I still remember
Yeah.
that day. That put a lot of strain on our relationship. And I left. And then I had this dream. When I was a boy growing up, I was convinced I was going to grow up and be a preacher, traveling preacher and doing the big tent meetings and things.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah. Yeah.
wanted that, and I thought that's perfect. That's what I want to do. But it seemed like those doors always were closed to me. And so I thought, well, then the next best thing is to be on a platform and exercise the gifts and talents and abilities the good Lord gave me. And the desires was to be a motivational speaker. And so I left the family business to go into that line of work. And I say, Corey, I say, like so many people that came before me and so many people that will come after me, I let my fears and worries and doubts and anxieties and uncertainties get the best of me. And I thought,
Sure.
who am I to step into this thing? Even, in us guys in the faith arena, we talk about stepping into calling and God's purpose for
Yeah.
our lives. But it was something extremely frightening about that because I thought, I'm just this redneck oil field guy from northern Alberta. What do I have to say? And to whom am I going
Yeah.
to say it? And what
Yeah.
credibility do I have? And
Yeah.
talked myself out of the dream God gave me and the vision that He gave me for my life and the purpose and the calling that I thought was mine. And my wife says, "Well, dude, you better get this figured out pretty quick because we still got mortgage payments coming out every Friday.
Yeah.
What are you gonna
We
do?"
got to pay the bills.
Pay
Yeah.
the bills. And so I don't like to tell this story a lot, but it's a very real part. I thought, oh my Lord, well, the only thing I really know to do and do well is to run this company that my dad and I ran together. And
Yeah.
he raised me and taught me everything about it. And I don't want to go back there. So I started my own company doing the exact same thing. I became my dad's biggest competitor, and that ruined Christmas that year.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, and within 3 years, he was out of business, and I just exploded. And there's stories inside of that. But then I ran that company for 10 years and just grew it and exploded it and set some records in that industry up here in Canada that still stand today. But I knew this was not the purpose God had for me. This was not me filling the gifts and talents and abilities that, exercising those that God had for me. And I knew that I needed to exit that company. I knew from the moment I started that company that I needed to have
Yeah.
an exit date on it. But I
Yeah.
stayed there for a decade because it was the safe thing to do. It gave me surety and security, but I ended up exiting that 9 years in. I
Wow.
didn't quite make it a decade, and it was health that took me out. And I crash and burned health wise. Every one of us, especially business guys, we go hard at it, right?
Yep.
And we're focused and we're giving her.
Yep.
Stress is high, and
Yep.
stress got so high in my life that it started to shut my body down. And
Yeah.
I remember the doctor say, if you make it, you need to go do something different with your life. And so
Wow.
I spent 8 months living in a recliner chair with pillows stuffed around me so I wouldn't fall out of it because I had no control left of my body, if I could say it that way. Um, and I sold my company. I got on the telephone. I phoned
Mm.
my biggest competitor in the province of Alberta. He was one of the biggest top three players in all of Western Canada in my industry. I phoned him up and I said, I'm selling and I'm done and I have to be out. And he says, no, you're not. And I said, yes, I am. Nobody knows. You're the first call. I'm going to give you a week to think about it. Buy me out, lock, stock, and barrel. If I don't hear from you in a week, or if the answer is no, I'll put it up on the market. But you're the guy. And
Wow.
3 days later, he called me and he says, I'm coming to see you. We came to Grand Prairie and I sold him the company and he took it over. And 10 days after I signed that sale agreement, my health was fully restored. I felt
Wow.
like I was 20 years old. And then I entered the motivational speaking industry. And from that, it moved me from speaking to training and from training to coaching and from coaching to consulting. And so I have a number of different hats that I wear in that. One of
Man,
the
I
things
love
that we
that.
talked about, and I'm just going to put an ad on because you and I talked about it before we got on here. In the last, I can't believe it, Cory, it's been 20 years since I've been doing this gig now. I sold my
Wow.
company. Uh, well, I started this company, Achieving Goals Incorporated, in 2006, and here it is, 2026. And um, I don't know why I was going to tell you that story. My train just derailed, man.
That's okay. I have those moments. I have those moments too.
Oh, I remembered it, but it's not relevant. Let's carry on.
What's fascinating is you grew up in a family business. I grew up in a family business. My parents sold safety supplies, paint, industrial goods into the oil field.
Oh, wow.
And so you and I have a very, I didn't realize that until we just got talking about it. You and I have a very similar background in the sense that dad bought the business for us boys. There's four brothers.
Mm.
He thought we would carry on the legacy. One of us stayed with it all the way through. At some point, I left. I was the last one to leave the family. No, that's not true. I have an older brother that left after me. He came back in and then he left. And so, I have that same similar history of trying to figure out how do we manage this as a family
Yeah.
business, and that's its own dynamic. That's its own thing, all
That's a
by its
whole feast
own.
on its own. You got that
Oh
right,
man.
brother.
And then I had brothers involved in it that were older than me. So I was little brother. And anyway, that was an interesting journey
Yeah.
in and of itself. So it sounds like you went through a lot of things. We got out of we did 17 years of full-time ministry. So we did youth ministry and then we eventually did children's homework. We had actually moved out of a children's home. I was the CEO of an all-girls children's home in Wichita, Kansas, because of my health. Same kind of thing that you started. I started having ulcers, high blood pressure. The doctors were like, "Do you have a stressful job?" And I'm like, "Dude, I take care of 20 something teenage girls on our campus with house parents, their families, a
Yeah.
school that's on campus. Yeah, you think I got a little bit of just tiny
That's
bit of stress,
that's
right?" And
hilarious.
so people just don't realize how much it affects your body and how
Yep.
it, and not just your body, but that had to affected your family and everything. Like
Well, it
it,
did. I thought I was healthy. I
yeah,
thought I was strong. I was in my 30s. I
yep,
was 39 years old. I hadn't even turned 40 yet. We had just come home from a month off family vacation. I came back to work and I collapsed at work one day. That was it. I got halfway down the hallway and I just hit the floor and it was lights out. I lost my eyesight. I went blind. I lost all my bodily functions. I laid there on the floor. I could hear. That's it.
wow.
But I couldn't pick myself up. I couldn't roll over. I couldn't sit up. I couldn't nothing.
Yeah, that's wild. And to think that, I mean, really, that should have been a prime, like this is prime time in life. Like this is your 30s. Like I started over at 40. We literally started over with nothing. I didn't have enough money to even move myself because we had done ministry for so long. We were broke. And so we started completely over at 40. I'm 51 now. So that'll give you like we've been at this 11 years. We started with a safety supply company like my family, and then that moved us towards the marketing stuff that we do now with the
Yeah,
marketing agency. And then that moved me into all these other businesses that we've done through the last 11 years. But I think about, and I have conversations every day with business owners that are in the trap that you're talking about. I just had one with the business owners last week that we were looking at buying his business, and that he's in his 70s, he's stressed out, worn out. He put all of his money into his business, doesn't know how he's going to retire. Like he's just,
yeah.
and that's a common theme among business owners that I see nowadays. And I'm
Truly.
sure that's really where you're kind of coming into the picture now.
I see that every day, just like you do. I was just having
Yeah.
a conversation with a very frustrated, stressed out 70-year-old business owner. He'd been in business 40 years. He just
Yep.
wants out so bad. He wants to
Yep.
sell the company, but it's not sellable. It's
Right.
not worth anything to anybody else. And he's still, after all of this time, he's the chief cook and bottle washer. I said, well, then you're the chief cook and bottleneck. Without you, the thing is useless. It won't run.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. I see it every day. Yeah.
My dad had built a company kind of the same way. Luckily, my brother had enough kind of forethought to build it out bigger. We opened multiple locations when I was there years ago. Like it, we were able to take and help to build it big enough at that point to where he could take it from there, and then he sold it not too long ago. But I think back and I like what you just said, like there's so many business owners that are listening right now that they're worn out, man. They're worn out, they're mentally, emotionally, spiritually just spent, and it
Yeah.
and it affects everything physically.
It
what
really does.
what message would you give somebody, just out of curiosity, what would you tell somebody that's in that position at this point, that's listening to this and maybe they're just like they're just done?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be pretty much the same thing as I chatted yesterday with this gentleman. And I said, if there's a scripture that says, without a vision, my people perish.
Yeah.
And you have a company, you have no vision for your company. You haven't had a vision for your company for a long time. We wake up every day and we just do what we know to do. And so our vision is 24 hours at a time. So you don't have a long-term vision for who you are and what you want to do and what the future looks like. So we've got to we've here's the unfortunate part. What I'm going to suggest is sounds like a whole lot more work up front. And how in the world do you want me to do a bunch more work when I'm so frustrated? But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
got to almost, if I dare say, go to work to craft a vision for the future. And that vision doesn't have to be a long future. Like
Right.
let's craft a vision for the next 12 months or 24 months. But and and then we can move towards that. But in front of vision has to come purpose. What is the purpose to do what it is you're doing? People set goals in a moment of time. We do that all the time as businessmen. We
Sure.
sit down and we set a goal
Sure.
to take over this much market share, or whatever it might happen to be, quarter by quarter, year by year. And I said, that's the last thing we should be doing. It's purpose first, vision second, goals third. And most people, they're just chasing goals and then they can't figure out why they can't achieve the goal,
Right.
right? The common poll will tell you that 97% plus of people that set goals, including businesses, never achieve the goal they set
Right.
for themselves. Why? Because it's not linked to anything. It needs to be linked to vision and it needs to be linked to purpose. And every decision you make in your business needs to be linked to vision and linked to purpose. And so, here's your guys, your audience, your listenership. Well, that's me. I'm that stressed out guy. I'm that frustrated guy. I'm at my wit's end. I just want to stop. I just want to quit. I got nothing left in the tank.
Right.
So here's I don't come along as the motivational guru and just tell you what you want to hear, but I'm going to tell you what we've got to put in a little bit more work first. We
Yeah.
got to we got to get some vision.
Yeah.
Right now you're dying. We need a vision, and in front of vision we need purpose. And we can do a whole heck of a lot in a very short period of time if we have that equation first. So my question oftentimes, like the guy I talked with yesterday, do you have enough in the tank? Are you willing to put enough in the tank? And maybe even you got to feel like you're gutting it out for the next 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, 12
Yeah.
months, whatever that
Yeah.
is, and do this work for the next 12 months so that we can actually get your business sellable.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people, I know for me, I went into business. I was like you, I grew up in a small business. So I only knew like what my dad had shown me. This is what business looks like, right? This is the way you do it. And he didn't
Yeah.
take a vacation for 14 years. And this is, we were in the middle of Christmas dinner and dad would get a phone call from one of our customers because everybody had our home phone number. And it was just wild thinking back the way dad ran the business. And then when we started these businesses 11 years ago, my whole idea of business kind of it imploded because I looked at
Mm.
it. We had huge success. We went from starting the safety supply company to starting the marketing company along with it. And then the safety supply died because the oil field died. You know that, you know how that works.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden we're all in on the actual marketing business. And I'm looking at it trying to figure out, okay, now what do we do? And I set a goal to do 10,000 in 30 days. Cause for me, right, that was like, I needed to get to that number to even be able to survive. At that point, we had debts for the business. We had our own stuff that we were trying to figure out. And again, remember, I was broke. Like we were like just trying to find enough money to pay for whatever. And so we did it in 37 days. And then we hit 15, 20, 25, 30. And within a year, we were doing a chunk of money. And within 2 years, we were doing 90 to 100K a month in the marketing business, which is super high profit margins compared to the other businesses that I've ran.
Yeah.
At the same time, I woke up one day and I go, I just created a great JOB for myself. It was
Yeah.
not a business that I ran as the owner. It was me doing everything. It's funny to hear you say chief bottle washer because that's a term that my dad would have used. He would have said that, like chief bottle washer. But I think most business owners, they get stuck in that trap where they create a
Yeah.
great job for themselves.
And I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Although it was interesting because when I left my dad's company, the family business, my dad was always, like your dad, he had his way of doing
Yeah.
business and we just pick up what we see, we learn from
Yeah.
environment. So I guess this is how you do business. And my dad, he was the chief cook and bottle wash. He did everything. So I guess that's what I got to do. But yet somehow I knew in my mind that business had to be done different than what I
Yeah.
saw being modeled. And my dad was all about work as much as you possibly can so that you can get as much revenue flow in as much as you possibly can. But yet on the other side, be as cheap as you possibly can and cut expenses as much as you can and pay your guys as less as you possibly can. And, I
Yeah.
saw that it was a rip off. He was ripping
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
off,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And haggle to the death, with your vendors
Yep.
and try everything as cheap as possible. And this
Yep.
was going to be success. Success was driven by the dollar. And
Yep.
something didn't sit right with me when I saw that. And I thought, well, when I now was going to start my company, for me, it was just all about the people. And I
Yeah.
thought, if I can create an environment, I didn't know how to do that at the time, but I went on a quest for it. And I thought, if I really felt that if I built this business on people, then people would want to knock on my door and come and work with me, work for me,
Yeah.
work with me. And suppliers would come and knock on my door and want to do business with me. They'd want to supply me. And
Yeah.
customers would be knocking on my door and they'd want to do business with me. And that was, it sounds maybe just a really naive, but that's kind of what I believed and that's what I felt. And I built my business that way. And guess what happened? Guess what happened? I never had to place job ads because people from all over the country were reaching me out, can I come work for you? Can I come work for you? I'd love to come work for you. I'll move
Yeah.
across the country to come work for you. In the oil field, oftentimes it's feast or famine because
Dude,
we're
and it
in
can be rough.
seasons of winter and it's busy, and then summer there's nothing. And guys
Yeah.
were saying, look, I'll come and I'll move and my expense and I want to come and work for you and I'll just sit during breakup and do nothing, but I just kind of want to come and work with you, for you. I never had a lot of the same problems a lot of people did. I had vendors reaching out
Yeah.
to me. We want to do business with you. And then I had clients and customers beating down my door, asking to do business with me, asking and sometimes demanding that I get better, or not better, but I get bigger and I keep scaling and I keep growing so that they could hire more of me, if I could say it that way. And
Yeah.
and guess what? It worked. It really worked for me. But the whole business model was different and it was focused on being the best I could be because I had the best people, the right culture and the right environment. That took a lot of stress off, but it brought a
Sure.
different kind of stress that I didn't know
Yeah.
how to manage. Yeah, yeah.
I think people have, I know for me, I had all these preconceived ideas about business and about money and about like I wrote a book not too long ago called To Love Is to Give, that's specifically about how I saw money and then how we're supposed to see, like how God sees money and how, as Christians, we should see money. And it's very
Mm.
interesting to me because the belief system that I grew up with sounds like our dads came from the same, kind of the same world, man. My
I
dad
was going
was
to
a
say, is your
barter
dad my
fool, man.
dad?
He
Are we
could
related
barter
still?
anything. It was
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah.
And I look back and I think dad had such a great personality to be able to build a business and sell. And he could, everybody knew it. You could go in anywhere in our town and everybody knew my dad. Like
Yeah.
in every morning he was at the coffee shop at 5:30 in the morning, and he was very generous and all those things. At the same time, he ran the business for years off of a big chief note tablet. Like that was the way he ran it. Like it was all just written down on a note tablet. So I think that's the challenge sometimes with business is we don't know what we don't know, and that growth that we need or that we should have, a lot of times just doesn't happen. Yeah. So what I learned with about family business, and one of the things that was fascinating to me about the way ours ran, not only did my dad not take a vacation and all that, but like you said a minute ago, he was that guy that everybody knew him in town. He was a great sales guy. He was super friendly, but he ran the whole business off of a big chief note tablet, like literally for years. That was our he had a little dad wore a little pocket thing and had a little notepad
Yeah.
in there that he would take notes on, and we had handwritten tickets that we would fill out for the
Yep.
customers. That's the way we ran the business until my wife and I came back in and computerized the business after we got married. I don't even know what year that was, but that was a long time ago. But
That's
it's
awesome.
fascinating, right? Because we build these businesses and we don't even we like dad just got into he'd never ran a business. He had no idea how to run a business. He just did what he knew
Yeah.
to do, and that's all he knew to do. So
Yeah.
if somebody, just out of curiosity, because I know you've ran businesses, you've coached for 20 plus years, like when you look at all of that, what advice would you give somebody starting out a business now? Because you've got a lot of experience in all of this. Like, what would you, if somebody was going, hey, I'm going to buy this business, or I'm going to start a business, or whatever, what advice
Yeah.
would you give them, just out of curiosity? I know that's a big ask, by the way. That's a big question. So,
Yeah, I would say, understand that we're all ignorant, and it's not a bad word. It's not a cuss
Sure.
word. It just means we don't know something, right?
Yeah.
I'm extremely ignorant. I think in my older age, the more I realize older I get, the more I don't know. But I would say to somebody, understand that you're an unconscious incompetent. Go find out what you don't know
Right.
and then go know it. Go, and then go seek out some advice in that. And it's amazing how many times I get people reaching out to me. And I guess it's, I've been in the city I live in for 50 years, and I know I don't even look that old, but I am plus, and people and they want to get into business. They want to start a business or they want to buy a business or whatever. And it seems like the number one question is um do you think this, do you think this is a good idea?
Right.
And I say, it doesn't matter if I think it's a good
Yeah.
idea. And it doesn't even matter if you think it's a good idea. Does the marketplace think it's a good
Right.
idea? Because if the marketplace doesn't think it's a good idea, you're going to be in deep weeds if you go after it.
Right.
And so it sounds really, really basic, and maybe it's not where you thought you might want to go, but with asking that question, but I say it has business has nothing to do with you, the entrepreneur. It
Yeah.
has nothing to do with you, the entrepreneur. It's not about you. It's about the people you are trying to serve through your product or your service, right? And so is there a need and or a want in the marketplace for what you want to provide? And you got to know some hard answers to that. You got to know what the numbers are for that. Now, the good news is, even if you go and you do some market research and you do the right homework and you come back and you say, well, Al, there isn't a need, a big, or at least a big enough need in the marketplace for what I want to provide because the numbers only indicate this. The good news is that for the human race, we typically buy what we want versus what we need, right?
Sure.
And so if the marketplace shows there isn't a big enough need for it, is there still a big enough want for it? And then you've got to justify that number as well. But then so that it comes down to a couple of basic things for me. It's well, define the marketplace that you want to serve in. Is it your local city? Is it a
Right.
larger region? Is it your state? Is it my province? Is it the whole Northwest? Is it, whatever? Is it a larger footprint than that even? So define what the boundary of your said marketplace that you want to provide product or service or solution for. Who's in that space? What's their business model? What's their USP? Who are they serving? What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? What makes you different if you're going to step into that space? And does the marketplace even want you or need you?
Right.
And if so, how do they need or want you to deliver that that's different than everybody else's? That's just basic as far as I'm concerned. So when you say, well, if somebody says, well, I want to start a business or I want to buy a business, go answer those questions and then you'll know if it's a good idea to even start.
Yeah, I think do you follow Jesse Itzler any like at all? He's an interesting character. Or Tom
I
Ballou,
don't know
these
that name.
guys. So these guys, it's kind of fascinating because a lot of these guys talk about how they built businesses. These guys have very big businesses, have made a ton of money doing all kinds of different things from products to services. And it's fascinating to me when you hear the stories about things that they created thinking, man, this is going to kill it. It's going to sell so well. Right? It's going to just take off and it's going to boom and everybody's going to want one and
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. And then they bring it to the marketplace and nobody buys it or it does very
Nobody wants
right
it.
because they didn't do their research before they ever went through all of that trouble to make the product. I
Yeah.
imagine you see that all the time where people do that. They buy a business or they build a business thinking, oh, this thing's going to kill it and does nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Here's a oversimplified, but I'll share it as example. So a lady in the city of which I live, she bought the clothing store that she worked at
Mm,
from her employer who wanted to sell and retire. And so she buys the store. It's a ladies' clothing store. And then she decides that she should well, it actually, it was a ladies' shoe store. That's what it was. It was a ladies' shoe store. So then she dedicates one segment of one portion of one wall to put, three shelves on it and put 12 pair of men's shoes there. And
Mm,
so now now she's like, I'm a shoe store
right.
that caters to men as well. And I said, no, you're not.
Yeah.
She couldn't figure out why men weren't coming to the shoe store to buy shoes at her
Right.
place. And I said, well, what made you decide that this was a good thing to do? And she says, well, I just thought it would be a good thing. Good. And I said, yeah, you thought it was a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Did you find out from the marketplace that men need another shoe store, want
Yeah.
another shoe
Yeah.
store, and if they do, or what they're looking for? So I said, you're not a men's shoe store. I'm not going to come to you and look at your 8 pair of shoes and go, yeah, I'll buy one. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit oversimplified, but I think your
No.
listenership gets it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I
we
think that's a
assume that
great
just because
analogy,
it's
like great story.
yeah, we assume that just because we have an idea and we're passionate about, right? We hear these things like,
Yeah.
oh, just do what you love and the money will follow. What a crock. That's,
Yeah. Yeah.
or do what you're passionate about. Just do what you're passionate about. The good Lord, He gave you gifts and talents, abilities, and strengths. So if you just walk in those areas to do the thing that you're most passionate about, you're going to be successful. No, not necessarily, right?
Yeah.
So you got to do some things. So one of my best pieces of advice for going back to your original question, what would you say to somebody who wants to start a business or buy a business? Go do what 90% or maybe even more, 95, 90% people won't do. And that is go ask some hard questions and go ask
Yeah.
the marketplace,
Yeah.
do they even want? Because it's not about what you want, it's about what they want. And when you find out what they want, you have to deliver it in a way that they want it delivered, not the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
Business has nothing to do with you, the business owner, you, the entrepreneur, you with the vision. And that sounds
Yeah.
crass.
That's okay. I think as business owners, here's what I've learned is one is I have coaches. I'm sure you have coaches. You are a coach. I'm also a coach. Like we need coaches. We need people to tell us the things that we don't see. We don't see
Yeah.
and we don't know what we don't know. You mentioned that a minute ago about small businesses, and I think we forget that there's a whole world out there. Like
Yeah.
it blows my mind the opportunities that are truly out there right now. And there's so many ways for us to test the marketplace right now with online and the internet and AI and everything else that we have at our fingertips right now.
Right.
Like you can go test the marketplace pretty easily for just about anything if you really wanted to without having to spend a ton of time and effort and energy and money even to be
Hmm.
able to test it and see if it's even a viable product because there does need to be pin up demand. If there's no demand for whatever the product is, we've launched stuff inside of our marketing agency thinking, man, this is going to be a great product and it's going to do this and this and that and these and those. And the service that we launch out there, sometimes it's been a dud. It's done a whole lot of
Hmm.
nothing because we didn't go out and find out initially what people wanted before we started launching it. It just,
Exactly.
yeah, it was just one of those things. So I think that's great advice for somebody because they don't, like you said, just because you're passionate about it doesn't mean it's going to make any money. Just because
Well,
you
you know
want
what?
it doesn't mean it's
And-
going to make any money.
Right. And it can go the other way too. We look at, frustrated business owners, they're aging out, they're frustrated, they just want to get out. So here again, this goes back to the 70-year-old guy I had a
Yeah,
conversation with just the other day. And he says, once upon a time, the business was in a much better place than it was today.
yeah.
And we made much more money and we had a lot higher profit margin and we were doing so much better. And I said, well, what happened? Oh, well, we shut off this silo. We shut off this
Right.
profit center of the business over here. Well, why did you do
Why?
that? Well, I just got to be a hassle. I just didn't want to stay at that part. Why? But
Yep.
again, he went back.
Yep.
He was the chief cook and bottle washer, so he's the chief cook and bottleneck. So he had a storage unit business, still has the storage, the mini storage,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But and then they have another large portion. It's a huge yard, and that's where the RVs get stored in the winter, and people park their boats and their whatever over there. But they had at once upon a time as well moving company portion to that. So
Oh,
the big
wow.
truck shows up at your place, packs your
Okay.
boxes, loads them up, moves you to wherever you're going to go, and it had a nice fit because of their storage and everything. And he said, right, he got burned out because he didn't know what he didn't know. He didn't go
Yeah.
get some good advice. He didn't scale the business well. He didn't
Yeah.
get out of his own way. He had no, and so now they've got this, the largest part of the profit center for the whole business that made the most
Yep.
money was the moving division. But
Yep.
he was the guy that was taking the calls and booking the appointments and then getting in the truck and driving him and the crew down to the location to pack up, the customer's stuff and then move it over here and drive it across the country or whatever and then hightail it back home for the next one. He just got so burned out. He said, I'm just going to shut that down. I don't want to be on the road anymore. Well, now he did what? He didn't listen to the marketplace. He didn't
Right.
look at what the marketplace was willing to give him and keep paying him. And he
Right.
just shut down what he didn't want anymore, based on his own, energy or burnt feeling of burnout. And I said, well, you made a really bad decision. You should have shut this piece down instead of this piece if you wanted to shut down anything, but I wouldn't have shut anything down. I would have put somebody else in place to
Yeah.
run that part of
Yep.
the division or piece it out and run that. There's different ways we can do some things. And he goes, oh, again, it just, oh, I didn't know there was other options.
Right.
I maybe didn't know there was other ways to do things. I was just so frustrated and I was just wearing myself out being the everything guy. I'm like, mm-hmm. And so again, it comes back to it just sounds really oversimplified, but understand you're an unconscious incompetent. There's some things you just don't know. And
Right.
so find out what you don't know and then go know it.
Yeah. Well, and
And I
find
love what
people
you
that
said.
know, right?
Yeah, and I love what you said about coaches. I have a coach. I am a coach, but I have coaches,
Yeah, me
right?
too.
Because I'm not aware of my own blind spots. So somebody else has a different perspective than I do of my organization, of how I run things, of my life or whatever. And they go, but you see, from my perspective where I sit, and that's what I get to do for my clients, that's what you do for your clients. From my perspective, I see it this way. And so I see different options and different solutions and different
Right.
things. And if you can now just change your perspective to this, we've got different options available to us. And we can, oh, I didn't know that. And so for anybody that wants to, they're in that place where they're frustrated, they're burned out, they just want out, they want to give up. Or you're at the front end of that and you want, oh, I want to start a business or I want to get into business or I want to buy a business. Just know that there's a lot of stuff that you don't know that you don't know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
be open enough to put
Yeah.
your ego aside and go
Yeah.
find out what you don't know and then let somebody walk beside you so you don't make all those foolish mistakes, costly mistakes, expensive
Yeah.
mistakes.
One of the podcasts I did, one of the guests that I had on recently, he said ego kills businesses. And that really struck me. Man,
Okay,
that
right
is
there.
just that's truth. Ego kills
Yeah.
businesses. And I think as especially as men running a business, feeling the pressure, and in Christian men running a business, feeling the pressure, feeling like you're this is your responsibility, take care of your family and all that. There's just a lot of pressure that comes along with that that we just sometimes we don't pay attention to the warning signs and the warning signals and yeah, there's just a lot there to kind of deal with. And we have to, at
Right.
some point, we have to decide, are we willing to put the ego aside? Are we willing to ask for help? Are we willing to get coaches? And I love what Keith Cunningham says. He says, you can't smell your own bad breath. And it is such a valid point. Like we can't, he has a book called The Road Less Stupid. I would highly suggest anybody read that book. It's just really good. He's a very practical, Texas born, just a just a good old boy that's
Love
really
it.
smart, made a lot of money, lost it all, made it all back, built his business a totally different way. And he talks about he has coaches and he is a coach. And I think people, for me, I spent a lot of years without a good coach and it
Hmm.
affected my business. I could probably be 10 times the size, 20 times the size right now that I was if I'd have had a good coach. If somebody's listening to this today and they're like, "Look, I love the way Coach Al speaks. I love what he does. I love the personality." Because I think one of the things we need to realize is everybody's attracted to somebody different, right? We all have like people that we feel good about and we are resonate with and we're attracted to. If somebody did that, where would they go to find out more information about you? How could they get connected to you?
Well, I love that you say that because it's so true. And the short answer to that is just probably just go to my website. And I
Okay.
have two four-letter words for my name, right? My first name is Allan, A-L-A-N. It's not two L's, it's not an E, it's just A-L-A-N. And my last name is another four-letter word. It's Goff, G-O-F-F. So if you just go to alangoff.com, boom, you'll be able to see all kind of things, that sound wonderful. You'd think that my mother wrote half of it because it just sounds so lovely. But, there's a contact page. Reach out to me. You'll find all the links to my social platforms on there. You'll find me. And I say this to anybody. I say this to everybody. Look, if you want to find me, it's easy to find me. Again,
Yeah.
just go to my website, shoot me a message on the contact page. I don't care. Go to my social links and send me a DM. I don't care. Find some way to reach out to me. It's easy. You'll find it. You'll get it to me. And anybody that reaches out to me, I will get on a telephone call with you and we're going to
Yeah.
just spend one-on-one real time with you and see if we can help you and figure it out, you
I
know.
love that. I love that because I think just in the little bit of time that I've got to know you today, like I can tell that you're about serving, you're about helping, you're about more than just it's not about the money, it's not about the business, it's about serving people, helping people, guiding people, all of that. Because I think that's what we're
Well, it didn't
built for,
used to be.
right?
It didn't used to be because ego was not only killing my business, but ego was killing me. And it
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
until I lost everything too. I lost my health. I had nothing. And then eventually, I ended up losing. I lost my wife. I lost my family. I lost my house. I lost my fortune. I lived in a car, for,
Yeah.
almost a year and everything that I owned fit in the back seat of the car. I mean, I lost everything. And if you really want to get, even as a believer, as a Christian, my ego cost me so much.
Yeah.
And I got in my own way and my own, and sometimes the gifts and talents that the good Lord gave me, took me so far, but my character couldn't keep me there.
Yeah.
And it was because I lost everything and I had to have a reset that I learned, what, it's not all about me and it's not about my ego and it's not about my big chest and it's not about my big bank account. It's about exactly that. I'm on the planet to help other people, to serve other people. That's what the good Lord created me to do. And then I'm going to add this a little bit on to your audience is, we were talking about this earlier before we got on the podcast together. I spent the first 20 years of this work focusing primarily focused on the secular world. I did not want to serve my fellow Christian. I did not want to serve my fellow believer because I thought, they're cheap and they don't want to pay and they got no money and they're
Right.
broke.
Right.
And it's like the Lord is like, geez, that's quite a thought you got going on there. Like
Yeah.
maybe attitude adjustment. And I did need that attitude adjustment. And thankfully I got that attitude adjustment. And I really felt this last year, the Lord says, Alan, if you would help my people create better businesses, bigger businesses, more they can become more influential businesses
That's right.
for my purposes. Now go help my people get better so that my purposes can be done better than they are. And you can't do that, with ego. You
Yeah,
can't.
we serve a God of abundance, and I think so many times we live out of scarcity, and that scarcity permeates everything that we do, including businesses and everything. Like we make decisions out of it. And a lot of times I think it's kind of like what we were talking about a minute ago. We need a coach or somebody to point it out and go, "Hey, there's options. You don't
Yeah.
have to deal with this alone. You're not alone. There are options for you to be able to do that." I love that. I love your heart. I love what you are doing right now because I think it's needed. I think it's very needed. And I think it forces leaders to slow down and think. So this is, guys, if you're listening to this today, this is not about doing more. It's not about scaling faster. It's literally about living with intention instead of drifting on momentum. To our listeners, here's the question I want to set with after today. Are you building a life on purpose or are you just responding to what's in front of you? Because success without alignment eventually creates friction and clarity always precedes peace. If today's conversation resonated with you, make sure and go check out alangoff.com, explore Alan's writing, spend time reflecting on where your life might be running on autopilot. If this episode gave you language for something that you've been feeling but can't articulate maybe well, do these three things: subscribe to the show, leave a review, share this episode with someone who's successful but searching. Go reach out to Alan. He said he'd give you a phone call. Guys, that's huge. That is massive to be able to get someone's time that's been through it, been there, done that. bought 5 or 10 t-shirts, right? And until next Thursday, keep going forward, stay aligned with your calling, build with clarity, confidence, conviction, because guys, this is the forge where leaders are made and legacies are built.